Welcome to the Jeremiah Patterson Show, and thank you for joining me this Sunday. It was a day before the July 4th protest here in the United States that a new mural was unveiled in France. It basically shows the Statue of Liberty, which they gifted to us, by the way, but it shows the Statue of Liberty covering its face. It's covering its face in shame. And basically, this new mural in France is titled The Statue of Liberty's Silent Protest. The piece was painted by Dutch artist Judith Deleu. He wrote, quote, "Freedom, hope, the right to be yourself, those values are lost for many." End quote. Once again, just look at that artwork there. This is in France. They gave us the Statue of Liberty. Look at that there. Yesterday was July 4th. And it essentially celebrates the birthday of America, the birthing of American independence from a tyrant in Great Britain. And for many people, rightfully, they did not feel the desire to want to celebrate, the desire to want to get together and to eat and to barbecue and all that stuff, because for many, it really is a despondent time. I mean, we are watching collectively women's rights under unprecedented assault. We are watching right now immigrant rights being assaulted, with immigrants literally being haunted and attacked just because of the color of their skin, just because of the Hitlerian language that is coming out of this president's mouth. I mean, we are watching institutions being utterly destroyed and decapitated. All of this and more happening at once. And of course, yesterday, Donald Trump, with Republicans gloating, signed his massive budget bill, this evil piece of legislation that is now law, which is going to cut 17 million people off of their health care here in the United States. It has massive budget cuts to Medicaid and to Medicare. We're actually going to be doing a special report on that, featuring someone who works essentially for a multi-state hospital system, who's going to be talking about the impacts on rural hospitals here in the United States. That is going to be extremely devastating, because that is a particular part of this law that will now be affected as a result of those cuts. I mean, massive cuts here. Children and everyday working people are going to be starving and will die as a result of this. That is not being hyperbolic. So all of this at once has happened in our country. I mean, it's only, 6 months since Donald Trump has been president? All of this moral degradation we have seen in the country. And to counter that, we have seen also consistent and persistent resistance to what this administration is doing. Yesterday, we saw that again. This was here in Columbus, Ohio. A crowd gathered to protest against the Trump administration. They're chanting, "The people united will never be defeated." This is from Lisa Nystrom from Kent, Ohio. She posted this on her Substack. Approximately 100 participants during prime picnic time, young and old alike. See the signs there? "Billionaires are the only minority ruining our country. No kings in America. This is not governance, this is chaos." And then, of course, you see this sign here. I feel like all of us can collectively relate to this sign. Too much outrage for this sign. We all feel the same way. This is in Worcester, Massachusetts. "Kindness is free." This is from Judy out of Oklahoma City. One of the signs on the fence, you can see it reads there on the back gate. It says here, "Resist fascism, fight the oligarchy." And then also, look at the cute little golden retriever all dressed up there. Dogs for democracy. I gotta tell you, this kind of reminds me of the sign when I covered the protest back in early February of one of the dogs that said essentially, "Dogs against Doge." Very, very clever what they're doing here in terms of dressing up the dogs too as well to be a part of the protest. In Dallas, Texas, 150 people gathered to protest what the Trump administration is doing. In New Mexico, 1,500 people showed up. Just look at that crowd there. 1,500 people showed up. You can see they're all lined up there. Yesterday, we also saw protests in Schaumburg, Illinois, as residents gathered alongside the streets as cars went by and they held up their signs and they cheered and they chanted. In Chicago, Illinois, we saw massive protests as residents gathered in the streets to protest what this administration is doing, the authoritarian actions that are happening, also the attacks on the mayor of Chicago, which is a Democratic mayor. Again, what this administration is doing to the opposition party, what they're doing to try to intimidate leaders who are fighting back, especially against ICE. This was in Chicago yesterday. Massive crowd there. They're chanting for democracy against the Trump administration. In Atlanta, Georgia, you had people playing their instruments as they marched through the streets with their signs. This was in Los Angeles, California, which, by the way, it should be noted essentially that law enforcement presence, military presence, is still on the streets in Los Angeles. That should not be lost to the public. I know there's not a lot going on in the news right now, but there is still military presence, U.S. Marines on the ground in LA. This is reporting from the LA Times here. Quote, hundreds of protesters who spent the 4th of July in downtown Los Angeles to rally against the immigration raids that have roiled the region and the surge in federal funding approved this week to keep them going. Many on the streets say they were skipping the barbecues and the fireworks this year. They marched through Olvera Street and outside the federal building, which houses the immigration court, waving signs. Several police officers were monitoring the protest but kept their distance during the gathering, which lasted a few hours. No more occupation, no more deportation, the protesters chanted. At the federal building, military personnel lined up shoulder to shoulder, guarding the property with shields and guns. End quote. Once again, this is out of LA here. These are some pictures here that we're seeing. This is provided by the LA Times. Just stark scenes, our military on the streets deployed against the citizens of this country as they express their First Amendment rights. This was a crowd here out of Seattle, Washington. Huge crowd there as they are holding up their signs and chanting as you can see the drivers is going past here. All those people in Seattle, Washington there. This is Miami, Florida. It should be noted that 200 U.S. Marines have been deployed to Miami amid the mass deportation campaign that is happening here. They have been deployed to Miami to assist ICE. And of course, this comes at a time where in Florida, Alligator Auschwitz was just built. And the grand opening, of course, was this week. We're going to have special reporting on that later on today as well. And the horrific ramifications of what this facility, this concentration camp, really, it should be called. That's why I call it Alligator Auschwitz, not Alcatraz, because we need to call this what this is in this moment. Talking about what that is going to be for immigrants in this country, but also, the other devastating reports we've been getting out of immigration detention facilities all across the country. This is from Kimberly Keys on Substack. She posted this footage from a Washington, D.C. protest. They're gathered here on an overpass, and they're also walking and chanting simultaneously. These are from protests out of Virginia. They are gathered there in Roanoke, Virginia. They're all gathered together, sitting down, protesting as the cars are going by and making sure that their voices are heard in this moment. This here is out of Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston, South Carolina here. Protesters gathered together to express their opposition against that massive legislation which was just passed by the House on Thursday earlier this week that is going to have massive Medicare and Medicaid cuts, as well as making ICE the largest law enforcement agency in the nation, as well as other detrimental factors to that bill. They were protesting that, as well as the authoritarian actions of the Trump administration. So all of this collective resistance we saw across the country yesterday, as what is happening under this administration is a more and more visceral crackdown on opposition, on freedom of speech, on the political party that is opposed to this administration, we are consistently seeing that. More and more authoritarian actions every day. But what we also are seeing to counter that is resistance all across the country. Consistent resistance. Because, of course, mass resistance defeats authoritarianism. And I know it is hard. I know it has been extremely despondent and depressing and emotional and exhausting. And it takes time, unfortunately. But in every historical movement, authoritarians do not succeed because mass resistance ultimately defeats that movement. It ultimately defeats authoritarianism. You know, I think back to, you know, the foundation of the United States, and essentially one of the things that Benjamin Franklin said in terms of the U.S. becoming its own independent nation, this democratic republic free from the tyrant King George. And one of the things that he said was, you know, this is a republic if we can keep it. Benjamin Franklin said, a republic if we can keep it. A republic. It is worth mentioning that in regards to the anniversary of this nation, the birth of this nation, it is important to understand that democracy is fragile. A republic is fragile. We are living in a time where authoritarianism is rising across the world, not just here at home. But also authoritarianism is more attractive to the eye for certain people who no longer want democracy. It is attractive to the eye for billionaires who rather have that system of government because it means that the people are oppressed, that there is no collective democratic resistance or pushback, that there is no government where the people benefit. We are living in a time where the richest among us are getting massive tax cuts and the poor, the impoverished in this country, the hardworking middle-class citizens are going to have catastrophic impacts to their wallets, to their health, and to themselves as a result of what's going on. We're living in a time where it is less safer to be a minority in this country. We're living in a time where democracies are not popular across the world. They're not, because authoritarianism movements are rising. But we're also collectively watching the people fight back, not just here at home, but across the world. And you may be tired, you may be hurting, you may be depressed, but it is inspiring. It is inspiring. And we have to use that as our motivation to get through this moment. We are only 6 months in. We cannot get tired now. What they are trying to do is break our spirit. What they are trying to do is flood the news cycle with so many stories so that you just tune out the news completely, so that you feel completely hopeless. Eyes open, heads up, stay focused. Mass resistance defeats authoritarianism. If you enjoyed this video here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as also list your suggestions, your questions, or your thoughts on this video. Also, I'm interested to know what other topics you want me to cover here on the show. If you are not already, please be sure to follow the Jeremiah Patterson Show at tjpsnews on Blue Sky and Substack. By the way, on Substack, we are nearly at 1,000 subscribers, and there is chocolate ice cream in the freezer, and that's a very exciting thing because I only save chocolate ice cream for huge celebratory moments. So can we please get to 1,000 subscribers? That's just going to be great, especially since it's Sunday and we're all just relaxing. So please, can we get to 1,000 so we can celebrate that moment here? I started here on Substack doing the Jeremiah Patterson Show back in January of 2025. I've really been doing this in full context since I was 13 years old back in 2018. So to be where I am now and to consistently grow across Substack and YouTube and TikTok and all these other platforms. I'm deeply grateful and appreciative for you all. So hopefully we can get to 1,000 subscribers today. Ways to support the Jeremiah Patterson Show. Since this is independent journalism, you can support us at TJPS News on Cashapp, on PayPal, and Venmo. Those are ways to make one-time donations to the Jeremiah Patterson Show. If you want to support us consistently or over a long time, you can, of course, become a paid subscriber to the Jeremiah Patterson Show, supporting our Substack here, as this is independent journalism, and we do rely on your donations and your financial support to continue this crucial work. You can subscribe for $7.99 a year or $75. Excuse me. You can subscribe for $7.99 a month or $75 a year. I appreciate you all so much. Once again, those 2 special reports coming up later today on Alligator Auschwitz, as well as what's in Donald Trump's evil law that has just been passed here. And gosh, I've been doing research for that, and that's going to be quite a long video, but it is worth watching, and I hope you all will be tuned in tonight o'clock at 8 p.m. So don't miss that. Stay tuned. I will see you soon.